Okay, welcome. Here we are once again. You, me. I'm looking a little balder, I think, than last time we saw each other, but you are looking outstanding. Is that a new shirt? That's a new shirt. You look great. This is what I slept in last night. Hold on. Okay. Today, I'm going to divert from the normal trajectory of these videos and instead tell the tale of how I originally came to work in the oil and gas industry. While this type of work is a dream job for many, and though I kind of snuck my way into it, it was this career that first showed me that my happiness was not going to be found sitting behind a desk in an office with my name on the door. Also, when I left, I stole my name off the door. Oh yeah, we have two cameras now. There's one over here, and there's one over here. I see you. I see you. I see you. Okay. Now, I definitely lied on the application at my first oil and gas job, but probably not in a way that you would guess. I'll just tell you right now, I lied about my age. But for the sake of telling a complete story here, let's back it on up to how I even came to be applying for this job. Now, prior to this, I had only worked at the hut from which pizzas come, and that only lasted for about 4 months on nights and weekends while I was still a senior in high school. So we're talking like 1997, I guess. Moving right along. Something that I've always done just kind of on the side, and still do to this very day, is play live music, like with a band on stage and stuff. See? So back in, it must have been May of 1997, I was just about to graduate high school. My band at the time would pretty much always invite the audience to wherever we were going to be eating after the show, Denny's or IHOP or whatever, we were kids. And on this fateful night, a fellow by the name of James, shout out to James wherever you are, turned up at the restaurant after the show, and he and I got to chatting. I asked him what he did for a living, and he told me he worked at this oil and gas company. Now, in Houston, oil and gas is kind of sort of like the bread and butter of the economy. Not like in a coal mine way during the Great Depression or the Old West or whenever coal mines were a thing. Are coal mines still a thing? And maybe it was more like this back then than it is now, too. But at any rate, I was a 17-year-old kid. A job like that sounded like the light at the end of the rainbow under the bridge downtown or whatever. So of course I did what any kid with absolutely nothing to lose would do and asked them if they were hiring. By this point, I was probably a week out of high school with no job and really nothing going on. We exchanged numbers, and a few days later, I got a call on the telephone attached by a wire to the wall of my house because no one had cell phones then. It was a different time. He tells me that they actually are hiring for a computer operator position, which I believe he described as being, quote, monkey work, which sounded absolutely great to me. Now I'm actually questioning how much of the details I should go into about this actual position. Because even though I lied my way into it, which is the point of this video, I walked into a situation where the other guys there were very much taking advantage of the circumstances, and my 17-year-old self certainly wasn't going to rock the boat. These were grown-ass men. God, they were probably then the age that I am now. I don't want to make this video anymore. All right, I'm going to tell the damn story and then we'll just see what doesn't get edited out. So I'm told to show up on a day at a time and I'll fill out an application and get interviewed. And that if everything's fine, then I should get the job. Again, not going to lie, this was a different time, but that was a pretty sweet sounding deal. So kids, start a band, play some shows, invite your audience to Denny's. Now in general, I don't remember a lot of things, like a lot of things. But I very vividly remember that day walking into that building and filling out that job application. Does anyone know if there's like a statute of limitations on lying on a job application? Specifically about your age? And if so, exactly what sort of punishment am I looking at here? Or what I meant to say is I'm asking for a friend, but that friend is actually asking for me because I'm the one that lied. 25 years ago. Is it smart to make a video about this and put it on the internet? Leave a comment below and let me know, especially if you're a lawyer. So up to this point, I never took my age much into account, but then I came to a box on the application that I had to check saying that I was over 18. And right by that box was a line where I had to write my date of birth. Can you guys see my hands? We're doing it again, aren't we? We are. It's a theme around here. So again, with literally nothing to lose, a decision was made in that moment. I checked the box and I wrote my date of birth. But how exactly did I write my date of birth? I'm glad you asked. I was born in July of 1979, and this story takes place in probably the second week of June in 1997, which puts me roughly 3 weeks from being 18. Regardless, to have been 18 on the day that this story takes place, I would have had to have been born in 1978, because math. So I wrote a 78 that also kind of looked like a 79, and I smeared it as though that number had gotten really inky from the pen, and my hand rubbed against it while I was filling out the rest of the application. You know, super spy espionage type document falsification tactics. Regardless of the fact that I checked the box saying I was 18. You guys doing all right over there? Good. And then I got interviewed and took a tour of the computer room, which any IT folks out there would totally nerd out over the fact that at the time contained a giant convex supercomputer processing data from 3590 tapes, which basically look like 8-track tapes, which is still maybe too archaic of a reference to mean anything to most of you. But 8-track tapes were kind of like MP3s back when you had to hold music in your hand. And all the data backups in this data center were done on old school, genuine reel-to-reel tape machines. I apologize if none of that means anything to you, but your grandparents would have totally nerded out. And so I got hired. The only time there was ever an issue with any of this was in December 2003 when I was having my first child. Well, I wasn't having him, but wherever babies come from. We were at the doctor's office for the first prenatal appointment, and the nurse says, "Sir, the date of birth on your driver's license doesn't match what your insurance says. It's off by a year." And of course I was like, well, that certainly is odd. There's for sure no way that super spy espionage documentation falsification type tactics could in any way be related to this. How do we fix it? And they told me it was no problem, that they would just have the insurance company update it. And with that, the perfect crime was concluded. For sure, no one will ever find out about it. I would go on to work for that same company for just over 10 years. I worked my way up from being the monkey that loaded the tapes into the machines to being the monkey that built and administered seismic data processing clusters, which was the technology that replaced supercomputers at the time. In those days, I was wined and dined by the likes of Dell and Hewlett-Packard. I administered the largest non-military installation of Apple servers in the world at the time. We existed on the bleeding edge of computing technology, and I'm sure that industry still does. But the device that you are watching this video on today is basically as powerful as some of the best servers were then. Of course, we had tens of thousands of them working together. I digress. After a decade, I would resign from there and go work at another oil and gas company for another 3 or 4 years. Before, at the ripe old age of 30, I would decide to leave that industry entirely, cash out my 401k, and stay home for 6 months hanging out with my kids before starting an entirely new career from the bottom up in an entirely new industry. And that, my friends, is how I lied my way into the oil and gas industry. The moral of the story is, I'm not sure there's a moral to this story, but I cannot condone lying to any employer, especially after I spent so much time in my last video talking about the importance of honesty and transparency in doing business. But hey, it's not really true knowledge unless you learn it from your own experience, no? So I guess the moral then is, if you are gonna lie, be super good at it and don't get caught. No, that's probably not it. But if you do lie, definitely don't make a YouTube video about it. Now, I know this was a change from my prior videos, but we're still just figuring things out around here. And if you enjoyed this little story time and want to hear more tales about my years in oil and gas, then leave a comment below. Otherwise, I will literally never know. I'm sure at some point I'll also tell some tales from my days at working at the Blue Alligator mascot company. Or maybe I shouldn't do that. I've seen some stuff, you guys. Digressing again. If you enjoyed this video, please tippy tap the like button. And if you also saw fit to tap upon the subscribe button to help me grow this channel, I would be much obliged. Okay, I love you. Bye.